Hey everybody, it's ShadowStar here for another Doctor Who review. This time it's The Wild Blue Yonder. And starting off with the episode name itself, it was one of those titles that was kind of completely random. Everyone was theorizing about what the title could mean, everyone had a million theories about this episode, and the vast majority of people were all wrong. Now, this isn't a criticism of the episode, of course. I'm not saying the episode's bad, but this episode was not anything crazy or wacky like people thought it was going to be, which, to be fair, a lot of people had their expectations way too high. But let's get into the episode itself, because it was still mostly enjoyable. Well, not as enjoyable as last time, but still pretty enjoyable. The TARDIS is going crazy, and it's going to a few different places. We have this random joke where we go to Isaac Newton, and then we just go back, and I don't know why that was even in the episode, other than making a recurring gag where we can't say the word gravity anymore. But anyway, we land in this random spaceship and the TARDIS goes missing, and it's all a pretty nice scene because Donna's worried she'll never get home, and that was a genuinely nice scene between the Doctor and the Donna. Then we walk around the spaceship. I like the atmosphere when we first walk around the spaceship before everything gets really weird. You know, it's big, open, and empty. I had a feeling it was going to be one of those episodes. You know, some people thought it was going to be one of those kind of a mind trip episode. An episode where it's just kind of, you know, I don't know how to describe it. It's not a clear-cut episode. There's no clear-cut... Well, okay, there is a villain, but, like, there's no clear-cut. There's not a lot of people in the episode. It's a very self-contained, one type of set episode. But yeah, anyway, we walk around. I really love the atmosphere of that starting scene where we're just walking around. You know, it's very much an episode where you and the Doctor are discovering things at the same time. The audience is not sure what's going on. But anyway, we have some few things. We're looking around and we discover things. But then we get a scene where the Doctor's talking to Donna. And Donna's talking to the Doctor. And you realise they're not talking to each other. All of a sudden, there's these clones of them. And in those scenes, you know, we get some nice moments. Donna's, of course, worried she's not going to make it back to her family. That's an emotional scene. But Doctor, talking to the Donna clone, actually mentions stuff about the Timeless Children and Flux. And he's actually feeling emotions about it. He's actually, you know, feeling the weight of it. You know, we always poke fun of the fact that Flux came and went and it seems we've just ignored it. And here we go, actually not ignoring it. Russell is giving us better resolution than Chibnall did for a story that Russell didn't even write. It is clear that Russell has been paying attention to the story throughout all of Moffat and Chibnall's era. And he's like, you know what, I could make something out of this, and here you go. Some people might not be happy about Timeless Children being mentioned, but it exists, like it or not, it exists, and at least we're acknowledging it. Yes, the Doctor isn't from Gallifrey. So, you know, that was a nice little scene. Like I said, this episode continuously goes on to be creepy, whether it's moments where they're separated and they're walking down corridors, and you could tell that not just Donna's freaked out, even the Doctor's freaked out at some point, so I did like that. You know, granted, I won't deny, you know, these type of episodes are usually not too much my thing, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. You know, I do like that moment where you realise it's starting to learn from them, and in that moment it almost becomes a lot like, Midnight, where it's starting to learn from them and it wants to take over their lives and get back to the real world. So, you know, when I realized it's kind of like Midnight, that's when it clicked and I'm like, oh, I like this a bit more now. I see where they're going with this. Once again, no, I know I'm repeating myself, but I really love the atmosphere. I love the moment where we look out the window and there's just nothing. Donna says it's creepy, but in a weird way, I kind of find it beautiful to be at the edge of the universe. I hate the fact that Doctor's like, oh, it's hard to explain there's an edge of the universe, but I'm like, no, it's not that hard to explain. The idea of the universe having an edge and light hasn't reached it, so there's no stars, makes perfect sense to me, at least in terms of some theories of the universe. So, yeah, I like that scene. I found it very kind of beautiful, just looking out into the vast nothingness. But Anyway, I feel like it's hard to sum up this episode because it feels like, yes, that is one critique of this episode, is it is a lot of just walking down corridors, repeating a few of the same things with, the clones, and we're going back and forth with them, and, it does feel like this episode kind of stays in this, because the episode does indeed stay in the same place, there isn't too much to say. There is a few nice scenes with Donna talking about her family. The music when Donna talks about her family is nice. It's not the regular Donna theme, it's a Donna kind of soft, gentle theme, if you remember. So the music captured that scene well. I like the Doctor actually paying the fact that, yes, the universe was indeed partly destroyed during Flux, and we're just continuing with that. So there was good moments throughout this episode. The villains, if you can call them that, were creepy. I don't care for the body horror stuff, but I suppose that's kind of the point. You're not supposed to find it enjoyable. It's creepy, but not in an enjoyable creepy, just kind of a kind of way. Although, when they're much more better formed, they play villains very well, obviously, especially the Doctor. David Tennant does this really good thing where he could just do a kind of a half-evil smile. I mean, we know David can play evil villains, but he played that so well. There was this one moment with the most subtle, small smile. I really loved it. But then, at the very end, because obviously, when it's all done and Donna's been saved, there is this moment where it's unsure if Donna remembers all the Doctor's stuff, because the clone Donna says, "Oh, I remember everything. When I was a Dr. Donna, I remembered all your past lives while we've been gone." And that makes sense. But then by that logic, Donna should be remembering it too. And they don't make it explicit. Donna says she doesn't remember it. But at the same time, I could argue that she's just trying to hide it. But I like the fact that we really play into the fact that, the Doctor is having this huge heavy weight on his shoulders, and he's just got to run with it. I really like that, and we just say no. And it makes sense too, though, because Jodie Whittaker's whole thing was not dealing with stuff, so it makes sense that, no, we're not dealing with it, but it's still there. Oh, and then, of course, we get the beautiful, touching scene that I actually almost cried over when we finally go home, and I didn't expect this. I expected the episode to end, we'll just go off in the TARDIS. I didn't expect to go straight back to Earth, but here we are, back to Earth, with a cliffhanger leading into next episode. And who was there? It was Wilf. Now, I'm not sure if Wilf is in the next episode, but judging by the fact that this episode had the memoriam at the very end, maybe he isn't in the next episode, but he was in this episode, and, just seeing him one last time and knowing, sadly, it is one last time, generally brought tears to our eyes, so that was a beautiful scene, and he's been rushed into the TARDIS. We don't know if he'll be in the next episode, but he may be not. Obviously, that's just a cliffhanger that's going to get everyone excited. I'm very, very excited for this next episode, but this episode, I can understand why some people were a little let down. Not because people were expecting any crazy cameos. I never expected anything like that, but, it was kind of an episode where, people pointed out that this is an interesting thing to put in the specials. Last episode made sense. Next episode's going to be crazy. This episode feels like it'd be a decently average and interesting episode if it were, say, in the middle of a season, like Midnight was. But putting this as, like, in the middle of 3 specials, you're like, really? This is it? Again, not saying it was a god-awful episode, but I feel like it's a bit of an odd placement, We feel like this is supposed to be the 60th anniversary, and this feels like just an average episode. I don't hate it, but it is an odd place to put it, and that's the weird part. Again, let me reiterate, I don't hate this episode. There were things sometimes where I'm like, alright, we're just kind of walking around a bit, but other times I'm like, the atmosphere is really creepy, and they played the villains well in terms of, kind of a non-entity. And I like that twist where for a brief second you think Donna's going to die, but she's not going to die. But I like the point of both this and last story really emphasize the fact that she doesn't want to keep going on adventures. She's having fun, but she doesn't want to keep going on adventures. And I imagine she's going to intentionally stay home in this final story. Really curious to see how they wrap up these specials, but it was an enjoyable episode. Not as crazy as the last one, but still enjoyable. But next week is what we're all hyped for. Anyway, with that being said, I will see you next week for more Doctor Who reviews and other things as well. See you next time, guys.